Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live, talk radio without the static. Email your questions and comments to lynn@pghcitypaper.com. And now your host, Lynn Cullen.
And good morning at you. Nice to be with you. Been very busy since you last saw me, trying to figure out how to get more attention paid to the absence of Rob Rogers and to what has happened to the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. I really think this is a larger issue than most people realize, because it does have to do with how we, the people of Pittsburgh, learn what's happening in our town. A newspaper serves that purpose, supposedly, and also on its opinion pages and editorial pages and letters to the editor, provides supposedly, again, a marketplace of opinions and ideas, shared not by all, but by, some. And so you end up, ideally, in a really good paper with a dialogue of some sort. That's no longer going on in the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette since its takeover. Granted, John Robertson Block, the publisher and editor-in-chief, has been in that role for some time. But since Trump's election, he's thrown away all pretense of putting out even a neutral newspaper. And ironically, the Post-Gazette was known as the liberal newspaper. It has not been in many years, and increasingly is turning so far to the right that its editorial page now bears no difference there is no difference between it and Richard Mellon-Scaife's Tribune Review. It's the same point of view. We need to get that word out, and people need to understand that this is a very big deal. Very big deal. This is not a Trumpian city. This is a democratic city. And to have our newspaper essentially thumbing its nose at us and expecting us to buy it, subscribe to it, amazing, which many of us do simply because we always have, right? So I want to bring you up to date on some of what has happened. Rob Rogers, late last night, made himself known on Twitter and also on his Facebook page. The statements are not exactly the same, but essentially the same. And in it, he tells us of his... Oh, for God's sake. What happened to used to be the first Tuesday in every month? We got used to that, didn't we? The first Tuesday in every month? Is it the first Tuesday? Oh, it is. Oh, no, it's Wednesday. Yeah, it used to be the first Tuesday in every month. Well, that was blissfully truncated. What the F is going on around here? Anyway, sorry for the interruption. So I wanted to share with you what Rob is saying to us. On Twitter, I want to thank all my friends, family, colleagues, fans, and readers from Pittsburgh and beyond. Your outpouring of support and well wishes have buoyed my spirits immensely. And a little bit more on his Facebook page. Again, I want to thank blah, 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 blah. Boy, your outpouring is I love what I do. Now more than ever, I believe in the power of satire and the public dialogue that it can create. Thank you for being part of that dialogue. I can't get into specifics here, but I felt that it was best under the circumstances to take some vacation days until issues with the Post-Gazette are resolved. Again, I can't thank you enough for your support. That's from Rob Rogers. Also, a statement has been put out by the Association of American Editorial Cartoonists, which is very hard to get into that one. If you think about it, there aren't a lot of editorial cartoonists in the country. Not every newspaper even employs one. Some newspapers, like the Post-Gazette, has for years had the same, and that is Rob Rogers. And it is only in the last few weeks, and in fact the few months preceding it, that they began essentially muzzling his cartoons, refusing to print them. And that is not normal behavior when you employ an editorial cartoonist to refuse to run the work for which you are paying him. So Rob is an extremely kind and wonderful human being. He's funny, he's quirky, he's a delight to anyone who knows him in a social capacity and in a professional capacity. Much loved throughout the country and loved by other editorial cartoonists. Anyway, the board of the Association of American Editorial Cartoonists put out a cartoon, because that's what editorial cartoonists did. And I'm unsure who penned it, who illustrated it, because it's illustrated like Rob would have illustrated it. I doubt that he did it, though, someone doing it as a tribute. And in it, you have a milk carton. You'll recall the days when missing children's photos appeared on milk cartons. They're long in the past now, but that was a thing. "Have you seen me?" it would say, and there'd be a picture of a child. Well, this says, "Have you seen me?" and it's a caricature of Rob. And the milk carton is labeled PG Trump milk. And here is their statement. The longtime cartoonist for the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette has gone missing. Actually, we know exactly where Rob Rogers is, at his desk, creating the excellent, award-winning editorial cartoons he is famous for. But it is those cartoons that have been missing for over a week from the Post-Gazette editorial pages. Although we know Rob is drawing them because new cartoons are being posted on the web. It doesn't take much to connect the dots between the absence of Rob's left-leaning cartoons and the recent arrival of a Trump-supporting editorial page editor. We would take this opportunity to remind all editorial page editors that their responsibility is to the readers, among whom in Pittsburgh, Rogers' cartoons are wildly popular. And it is time to remind these editors that their pages are for the open and ongoing search for truth in contending opinions. The editorial pages are a public forum, not a members-only private resort in Florida. And that is the statement put out by the board of the American Association of American Editorial Cartoonists. In that regard, I want to thank Debbie, who has sent me the direct line to the editorial page editor, Keith Burris. We will post this. I'm going to ask that you write it down right now, and not just write it down. I'm going to ask that you take the time to call and to let Keith Burris know that this censorship he is engaging in is the most antithetical behavior that a so-called journalist could possibly engage in. And that you want Rob Rogers cartoons uncensored and back in your life, back in the pages of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. So this is the number for the editorial page editor, Keith Burris. It is not a Pittsburgh number, because Keith Burris is also the editorial page editor of the Toledo, Ohio Blade. And I don't know, maybe he still lives there, or this is a cell phone. I don't know, but here is the number, okay? 419-724-6266. 419-724-6266. Please pass that around. Please make use of it. Please act. Let's begin not taking this particular affront sitting down. We are taking affronts every hour on the hour in this Trump era. And this one we needn't take lying down, feeling that we have no power. This is our newspaper. This is the paper that we have supported, many of us, all our lives, certainly all my life since I moved to Pittsburgh 30 plus years ago. And I know that John Robinson Block may own it, but it's our paper. And without us, it would cease to exist. Somebody yesterday suggested boycotts, that has been successful, and meaning you boycott the advertisers. So yesterday went home and I paged through that yesterday's Post-Gazette. You know what? There aren't any advertisers. There's next to no advertisers. I'm serious. There's some hearing aids. There just aren't any. Basement leaks. I don't know. There literally is. It is such a tiny paper now. And often, a successful paper has a lot of ads in it. And they're placed in such a way to leave space on each page for what's called the news hole, so that you can then put the work of your reporters in. Well, it's almost all news hole. There's very few. I don't know. It just didn't even seem like enough to even make a list. But if you have a PG and you care to page through it and see if there's any advertising in it that you, in fact, know and they're in your backyard. Again, that is an action you could take. Calling them and telling them that they need to pressure the Post-Gazette to put Rob back, or you are not going to be spending your money not only on the Post-Gazette, but also in the places that advertise in it. I don't know. Do what you can. The time for hand-wringing is over. It is time to act. And I've given you now a few things that you could do. And I hope you do them. Okay? Act. It feels good. It feels good to act. And to support a good man and a great editorial cartoonist whose work we are being deprived of simply because the editors of the PG don't agree with it. It shows how much they fear the power of Rob's pen. I mean, if they thought, geez, that's an unpopular view, let's put it in, big deal. Nah, that's not it. That's not it at all. They fear his reach. They fear his talent. They fear his ability to skewer the powerful. Man, I would love to see the cartoon he could put together about this. About exactly what's happening. And people have said, yeah, but they showed his cartoon yesterday. Yeah, one in the last 10 days. And it was one they agreed with. It was anti-tariff. They agree with that. So it went in. Okay. So that's the update on that. I love you guys. Somebody else sent me something I hadn't seen before. And it's about a week old now. And it's so on the money about what drives this despicable person who now is in the Oval Office. And he's been very open about it. And the author of this article, Chris Cillizza, found the statement in an interview that Trump had done in 1990. So we're talking almost 30 years ago. In 1990. And here was the statement he made. This is an interview with Playboy magazine. The show is Trump, and it is sold out performances everywhere. Now understand, he said that before I think he had a show, a real show. He was simply talking about the fact of how he sees his life. And the way he sees it is Donald Trump is the star of the Donald Trump show. And all he cares about are those sold out performances, the ratings, getting attention, having the spotlight on him. So this was said in 1990 by Donald Trump, a man of such needy ego that he's just right out there about his need for constant attention. Look at me. Look at me. Look at me. Look at me. Aren't I great? Isn't this the greatest crowd? Isn't this the biggest, highest ratings? Biggest audience. Look at me. Look at me. In a child, because that's that's like a toddler speak. It can be annoying. In an adult, it's pathetic. In a president of the still most powerful nation on earth, it is dangerous. So he did not become the big reality star until this century, in the 2000s. So in 1990, he's still saying, seeing himself as a show, as a commodity, as a program that he needs you to watch. So this idea of handling himself as a show is the way he's been operating his entire life. Success to him means being out there, being noticed. No press is bad press. This is the guy, Saliza reminds us, that actually created a non-existent human being named John Miller, who used to regularly call New York newspapers, the tabloids, and this is in the 1980s, and tell them about did you hear who Donald Trump is dating or who he slept with? Did you hear about his success, his virility, how he's everywhere? This was a guy named John Miller calling reporters, trying to get Donald Trump's name in their columns, in their newspapers. Think of it. John Miller was Donald Trump. Pathetic to have that great a need that you actually create an entirely fictional PR guy, and that you have the nerve to yourself then call and be him talking about Donald Trump. Of late, he's taken to talking of himself in the royal we, or the president. But he's had a lot of practice in it, because here in the 80s, here he is as John Miller talking about Donald Trump. Did you hear what Donald Trump is doing? Did you hear who Donald Trump laid? That's the kind of thing he did. He needed desperately to be in the papers, to be talked about. And then, in his wildest dreams, he ran for president because, man, that's a way, right, to have constant television cameras pointing at you. That's all he was thinking when he ran. He took to it like a duck to water. And he found very quickly that the more outrageous he was, the larger the gaggle of media became, the more attention he got. He saw that he was on CNN constantly, whereas Hillary Clinton wasn't. How they dogged his every steps. Every station, it was Donald Trump show every day, all the day. This, for Donald Trump, was a dream come true. And then he becomes the president. And here I'll quote Cillizza. And now he is the most powerful person in the country. He is a prime mover on the world stage. His tweets move markets and alter the calculations of foreign governments. When he says something, everybody now pays attention. This is, in short, the dream of Trump's life. And by the way, Cillizza says, the key reason why all the speculation that Trump would ever leave office voluntarily, or even before the end of his term, misses the mark badly. He is the center of it all. The Trump show is the show. It is the biggest. And it is, like he told Playboy, sold out. But here's the chilling part. Trump's only concern now is to keep the show going. How can he, avoid it going stale? Even the most popular shows eventually sort of, fizzle out. People weary of the same stuff. And Trump knows the answer is simple. Do more and more unpredictable things. Keep the people wondering what you're going to do next. Draw them back in. Mid-season surprises. Cliffhangers. And understand, that is why every day, we are buffeted by this pathetic, needy man doing whatever he has to do to keep us staring at him, to keep us fearing him, to keep whole governments wondering what the hell is going on, to keep the entire world watching. Oh dear. There it is. All right. And, the little show he put on yesterday in lieu of having the Super Bowl winning Philadelphia Eagles at the White House. That was pathetic. And I have to tell you, the so-called Philly fans that were there were overwhelmingly not Philly fans. Not a number of reporters went around, one reporter in particular, went around amongst the crowd of so-called Philly fans and asked them a simple question. Who was the quarterback for you guys in the Super Bowl? And do you know? None of the fans knew. Oh, yeah. Those were Philly fans. In fact, we do know that White House staff was told, get out there on the lawn and act like Philly fans and hide your White House credentials. Don't have them on. This is tin pot dictatorship. There's hysterical video, if you're still capable of laughing. There is hysterical video of Trump standing there with the with the army guys in full regalia, the chorus, I guess, the army chorus or something, singing God Bless America. Only it is absolutely clear, because one camera just stayed on him. He doesn't have a clue what the words are. Not a clue. He only came in on God Bless America. He didn't know Land That I Love. He didn't know Stand Beside Her and Guide Her with a Light From. He didn't know any. He would start like him and nodding and and then every once in a while, like you do if you're singing in a group, you're just one step behind trying to get the words from the people around you who are singing them. This is the guy who wanted to put on this patriotic display. And somebody has suggested, I bet he doesn't have a clue what the words to the Star Spangled Banner are. Left to his own devices, could he recite those words? But he's sure quick to jump on what he considers others' patriotism. A vile, pathetic little man. Little Tony writes, Lynn, it could, in regard to not a lot of ads in the paper, it could be there are more ads on the online version. Well, I'm sure that's true. And that's why paper ain't going to be around much longer, a paper newspaper. It's just not. So, yeah, if you want to go after them, check out the online edition, and then you can see their advertisers. I wonder what John Block's net worth is. I tried to Google it, but only found the article about his rich twin brother. I mean, they're worth hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. I don't know that they're billionaires, but they're doing just fine. Just fine. They're in the, probably top half of the 1%. That'd be my guess. If he's as rich as his brother, well, I would imagine they are. They were both given a similar stake in the company. If he were as rich as his brother, would he care if he drove the Post-Gazette into the dirt? No. I mean, I think it's his plaything. That's my guess. We're talking about guys who never really had to do anything in their entire lives. They were given everything they had. These are spoiled, rich kids. And it's his, the Post-Gazette. And I'm sure that's the way he sees it. He can do whatever he damn well wants to with it, include driving it into the ground. Tony says, it could be like pocket change to him. But I bet it would hurt his pride if it went bankrupt, since he's like his buddy Donald. Well, no, he doesn't have half the bravado of Donald. Anyway, P.S. Wish the news media would stop covering the press briefings. They are a joke. Well, yes. And they underscore that huge swaths of our so-called media are becoming jokes as well. So, incredible. We have a call. Hello, caller.
Hi, Lynn.
Hi.
Hey, I'm a little disappointed in you. You do all those bits and you didn't do Clint Walker. Unless you weren't a big fan of his, I don't know.
Clint Walker. I don't even know who it is.
Cheyenne.
What?
6'6" man, dark hair. Big guy.
What did he do? What did he do?
Played in a lot of Western. He's an actor.
Oh, yeah.
You didn't know Clint Walker had the deep voice?
Yeah. I'm seeing him now, and I am recalling seeing his but he wasn't a big actor. I mean, he was tall. You're right, but he wasn't huge, was he?
He was 6'6".
I know. Yeah.
Consider that small.
No, but I didn't mean he isn't huge in terms of, star quality.
Oh,
yeah.
you mean the acting. I see what you're... Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
probably not.
Not really.
Like after that Cheyenne TV show, he didn't really do that well.
Right. So we're talking... Yeah, I think I did see it, but it didn't move me. But yes, you're right.
Yeah.
He's gone. I do look at the obits all the time. When I share them, it's because there's something I find particularly compelling or interesting. So that's why.
Right. That's true.
Okay.
Okay, then. Okay, thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye. Margaret points out that 2 people knelt during the national anthem at the White House the other day. I wasn't aware that 2 did, but I did see video of one guy kneeling, and he refused to give his name to reporters. He just needed to do it, and then he went on his way. Speaking of kneeling, did you see what Fox News did yesterday? In their wonderful coverage of this whole made-up kerfuffle, they actually showed Philadelphia Eagles players taking a knee on more than one of their newscasts. And then it was pointed out by, I'm sure, a whole lot of people. That picture of those Philly Eagles taking a knee are not taking a knee. They're praying. And it was a circle of players, and their heads are down, and they're praying. Something I wish wouldn't be happening on the gridiron either. Between the prayer and the patriotism and the militarism, it's a wonder that even a football game ever is able to break out. So I didn't... Fox News. They couldn't find a picture of Philly Eagles taking a knee, so they put up pictures of them praying. And use that as proof of something that didn't happen. They later acknowledged the error, but, nothing holds them back from creating the storyline that they want to create. And if they end up being found out for such a clearly egregious lack of journalistic principle, they have been known to issue an apology, which in this case they did. It was issued by Chris Wallace, actually. Oh, my. Okay. Let's make things happier. Just for a second. There's a book out called The Happiness Curve. And it takes in a lot of scientific studies and stuff like that, which tells us something that scientists know, but it hasn't trickled down into the popular culture sense. I remember as a teenager having some woman who I thought of as an old lady, she's probably in her 30s or 40s at the most, say to me, she said wistfully, to be young like you again, she said, these are the best years of your life. And what she didn't know is she was telling that to a chronically depressed adolescent and telling me that what I was enduring at that moment were the best years of my life was, terrifying. Because the only thing you can think of is, well, hell, if these are the best years, why do I even want to keep going? Is it downhill from here? Dear Lord. Now, obviously, I plodded on. But research shows that it's old farts who are happiest. And I must say that has been true in my life. The older I got, the happier I got. And generally, if there's a curve that most people are on, now obviously this is not every individual, but it is a curve that is a reverse, it's like a U. Okay? So your childhood is usually, you're okay, you're happy, what do you know, blah, 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 blah. And then as you get into early adulthood, adolescence, early adulthood, and your middle years, your 30s, those are the most unhappy years by all measurements of social scientists. Now, the reason being that in those 20s, 30s, 40s, those are our busiest years, right? Our most productive years in many ways. We're working, we're raising families, we're scrambling. We've got, got a lot of responsibility. And it is because it is such a stressful period in our lives with all of the juggling of our ambitions, our ideas of what we expect of ourselves, what others expect of us, our parents aging, young children, worrying about all that stuff. It makes people very, very stressed out. And there are scientists who actually think that these feelings that we have in our middle years, 30s, 40s, of not doing enough, of falling short or something, of being very self-critical, that these might actually be sort of evolutionarily determined. So that when you're at your peak in terms of your brain, your physical self, everything, your childbearing years, that you feel this stress to, in fact, work harder, do more. They say that in chimpanzees and orangutans, they see the same kind of thing. They also are busiest in those years and clearly most stressed. So it's only when we're in our later 50s into the 60s and beyond that we begin to essentially mellow, to see, to say, well, I'm going to accept me. Here's who I am, imperfect. Not exactly what I had in mind, but, it's okay. And so older people tend to be more accepting of things they don't have control over. And they tend to appreciate what they have more. So they expect less and appreciate more. And this is, again, all through studies. Scientists are still, it says, trying to figure out why we tend to be calmer, more pragmatic, happier in old age. Because in old age, I mean, it ain't like you're not dealing with stuff. In old age, you're dealing with your decline. You know, with the aches, the pains, the physical problems, your mental acuity not as sharp, people around you dropping dead and stuff like that. And yet, there is this greater acceptance. And they say, all the studies show that this is really pretty much true across cultures, across countries. Although there are a few outliers. And you know what a big outlier is? Russia. Russia. The longer you live in Russia, the more miserable you are. You just keep getting more unhappy. At least that's how Russians test out. They have a national well-being curve that goes like this. It just keeps going down. The poor Russians. So that's what it is. Anyway, I think it's interesting. Anyway, scholars call it the U-shaped life satisfaction curve, common to both men and women, regardless of marital status, education, employment, anything, and that clearly a sense of well-being has less to do with our material circumstances or our accomplishments than we think. I know a lot of, and I've said this all my life, I know a lot of wealthy people who are miserable. I know a lot of very successful people who are not happy people. So, I mean, we're constantly told, happy can't buy love, can't buy happiness, and you can't. It's true. Okay, just wanted to give you that. Since we're all getting older, that should be good news. Oh, good. Something to look forward to. I'm going to be happier. And in my own, unhappy way, I definitely am. I'm certainly more appreciative. I think that's where I see it in myself. There is such an appreciation of good things in my life. I mean, I can get on a high just watching a child or, looking at a tree. There's a sense of such pleasure in what life affords us that you don't need anything but your own eyes to take in and enjoy. Okay. Now, do we have time to depress you again? Yes, we do. Oh, goody. First of all, I've been carrying this around for some time. And the British have finished some governmental study about why there are not more women on the corporate boards in the UK. Because there aren't. I mean, it's an abysmal showing. Let's see here. There's been some progress made. The number of all-male boards in the UK has fallen dramatically, but there are still 10 with not a woman to be seen. And just 7 years ago, there were 152 corporate boards in the UK with not one woman on them. 152. It's still really bad. They make up... well, I'll tell you what. let's go to the United States here. Because I just saw this yesterday. This is a whole different story. Do you know what percentage women make up on corporate boards in the United States? We make up over 50% of the population in terms of boards, corporate boards of the United States. 12%. 12%. Man, that glass ceiling looks like it's made out of concrete, doesn't it? 12% in 2018. And when the Brits did this study, they had these male corporate board members answer questions. Like, well, why haven't you made more progress? And why this and why? And listen to some of these are actual responses in the year 2018. We do have one woman already on the board, so we're done. Someone else's turn. Here's another. All the good women have been snapped up. And, I always love this one. Most women don't want the hassle or the pressure of sitting on a board. No, I think it upsets our fragile sensibilities, apparently. And here's another one. Oh, my God. And this the government study found more than once. More than one of the male board members suggested that women could not understand the extremely complex issues confronting a major British business. Oh dear, the persistence of this denigration of women all over the world obviously, it's maddening. It's depressing. It's infuriating. And I don't know how the hell if we have, this is as far as we've gotten. Used to be said there weren't any women in the pipeline. There's so many of us in the pipeline, it's a joke. And then there was this in today's New York Times. That thing I've been carrying around for days. This in today's New York Times. Qatar Airlines, Qatar, it's one of the largest airlines in the world, as it turns out. It has an all-male corporate board, and its chief executive is a guy named Akbar al-Baker. How the Baker came in, I don't know. And he also happens to be the head now of the Air Transport Association, which is a global airline trade association. And he was at their huge convention in Australia where he made this comment about the position he holds. In both cases, the position of leadership, and who could conceivably come after him. And here is what this SOB said. Well, of course, it has to be led by a man, because it is a very challenging position. Apparently, he made that statement at a large gathering of a lot of other leaders in the airline industry, obviously overwhelmingly male. And even then, there were audible gasps, according to the reporter, in the room. And later, when he was asked about the statement, he said what we've come to hear all the time from men making despicable statements like this. Oh, it was a joke. Didn't you get it? It was a joke. Nobody heard it as a joke. He was stating what he felt. It has to be a man because it's just too challenging for a widow woman's widow brains. And then this article quotes another Brit chairman of the board, the big supermarket chain in Britain called Tesco. And he was heard to tell a retail conference last year that white men are in danger of becoming an endangered species in senior business roles. You know, this terror, and we hear that this is why we have Trump. White men's fear. White men's fear of women advancing, white men's fear of black people, male and female, progressing. White men who have had a pretty smooth ride all their friggin' lives are now being asked to compete against the rest of the world that had been shut out because of their gender or their skin color. And oh my God, the picture I see is of that picture that you always see of, a mouse is in the room and a woman up on a chair screaming, ah, ah. That's how I see white men now. This Brit, all you Americans, so many of you, up on a chair screaming in terror because others are being given opportunity. Nothing's being taken from white men. They're just being asked to do something they didn't have to do before, which is earn their positions. And the fact is that white male privilege is still extremely alive and well, despite what this idiot grocer in Great Britain thinks. Or here's another one. Chairman of Saatchi & Saatchi Advertising Agency, Kevin Roberts. And he said this 2 years ago. He ended up eventually being fired. He said, this whole idea of gender diversity, it's all over. And he went on to suggest that women were happier in non-leadership roles. The advertising world is overwhelmingly white male. I worked in it once for one summer in Chicago when I was very young. And, wow. Well, that was before, this was in the late 60s. And it was Mad Men. I was working at a big ad agency, Foot, Cone, and Belding. In the 60s, I was working in a madman office. It was something. It was something. And there was no doubt what we women were there for. None. Okay. That's my blatherings for the day. I want you guys to remember to give Mr. Burris, the editorial page editor, a phone call. You don't have to be belligerent, and I would suggest not. I would just suggest being coolly infuriated. And just remind him of what his job is, okay? And remind him of what a gem Rob Rogers is. Here's his phone number, 419-724-6266. 724-6266. It's not a Pittsburgh number, 419. It's a Toledo number. Okay? Do it. Thank you.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.